Cat79, aka Chris, once again joined by my buddy, Dark Neon, aka Derek.
Konnichiwa.
Yes, and as you can tell by the video, the lively intro, and that culturally appropriate greeting, we're here to talk about
Camera! Camera!
That's the other guy.
Oh, oops.
Although he should get his own due because he's actually got himself released a very wonderful, impressive, box set collection that's like 130 some, but it does have or higher, but it does have every Japanese and English version of his films released, plus high def transfers of his most recent stuff. So it's like, if you're a Gamera fan, he's getting his due, and what we really need from him is another movie to come back. But no, we're not here to talk about Gamera, the friend of all children. We're here to talk about an icon who starred in several films, who wreaks a path of destruction, is very loud, and it takes a group of people to go ahead and stop him. Well, that's enough about the presidential election. Let's talk about Godzilla.
This thing just got dated.
Well, of course. Godzilla's birthday falls on November 3rd, and that happens to be in the year of our Lord 2020, the day of the presidential election, which everyone is saying is an AVP situation. I think, well, predators won't always go for you. Xenomorphs will always find a way to stick their tongues down their throat just like another person. So, yeah, that's about as much social commentary you're going to get on this channel before we start devolving into let's talk about Bantha Poodoo and rockets and all that stuff. Yeah, that's our usual fare. We're used to talking about the movies and our funny experiences, or what we think about that. A little side, we'll probably get into this more when we actually discuss the theme proper. But yes, as the title and everything indicates, we're here to talk about Godzilla. Today marked his 66th anniversary, and that's already 66 years of a franchise that is long-running, long-going, rivaled by a few in terms of just how many films and how consistent they are. I mean, the closest counterpart contemporary it has, is the 007 franchise. And on a side note, rest in peace, Sir Sean Connery, who we lost over the weekend. The first Bond, and in the eyes of many, the greatest Bond.
So I just realized that he's just now just kind of hanging out with Roger Moore now. So,
and also Honor Blackman, who also passed away, Miss Galore. So it's I know we're really going to feel dated and old when we hear about the news of Pierce Brosnan or Craig eventually going down the ropes, and we'll be like, oh, we're already at that point when that happens. But Sean.
If I have to say that it pretty much went out the most Bond way you can ever think of, dying peacefully in sleep over in the Bahamas.
Actually, yes, it feels like after all the violence and all the life of dangers and lust that he's experienced throughout the years, it feels like that's how Bond would go out, like just alone in the Bahamas in his sleep. That's kind of what happened to I think the ending of the Godfather trilogy. I think after all the violence and the power and the rise and the fall, Michael Corleone ended up passing away a sad old man alone. But
yeah,
we're not here to talk about Godfather. We're here to talk about Godzilla. So Godzilla, as many of you may know, is, of course, a Japanese monster franchise with kaiju, Iga, as it's known over there, which means kaiju, as Pacific Rheumatologist, means strange beast or giant monster. So that's become the colloquial term for a giant monster. So anytime you see something that's massive in size, people say, oh, there's a kaiju. And Godzilla was one of the first exports from Japan to really make that a big thing. And you see that in other features like tokusatsu, like Super Sentai, Mask Rider, all that kind of stuff. All that has some ties back to Godzilla, or Ultraman, or all the like that period of filmmaking ended up spawning these things that whenever you see like people in colorful or rubber outfits fighting big monsters in miniature cities, that usually evokes Godzilla. Even his ripoffs, people will say, yeah, that's a Godzilla-esque way of doing things.
Yeah, like not very many ripoffs exist out there, but I do know one in particular that Leonard Maltin just goes gaga over. Gorgo, I think it's European monster. I think no, it's Italian.
British Godzilla, yeah, yeah, that one's a pretty tale as old as time type thing with a mother coming for her baby. Like they capture a big monster, thinking, "Oh, that's the monster." It turns out that monster's just the baby, and then Mama comes into town, and as Ian Malcolm said in The Lost World, Mommy's very angry. So that is a classic, and
Oh,
that's one where people
another
tend to root more for the
another one is Reptilicus. Oh, that one's. I think that one's
the
supposed to spawn
Danish
out a
one.
monster.
Yeah, that was the one with the Danish puppet that spit acid everywhere. And then there's also Yongari, Creature of the Deep, who got an unceremonious remake in the 90s called Reptilian, which, oh boy, if you thought Godzilla 98 was bad, you're going to be wishing Matthew Broderick and John Reno were on screen with the way this movie was done. I think I might have streamed it once, and everybody was watching it once going, just why?
I think I probably blocked it out of my memory.
Uh, what I always remember from that movie is a bit when a laser from space hits the skeleton of the monster they just unearthed, and it starts growing flesh back in bad CGI. Which, believe it or not, that's actually the improved CG, and because they released it in theaters in a more bad shape, so then they actually did a re-release in 2000, and the CG still looked like it made like an early Windows 1995 cutscene. And the guys all, the prophecy has been fulfilled, and the crazy scientist is all, no, it isn't real, and that inflection, and I'm just that'll never leave my head.
So, um, yeah. So you could discuss any more about what Godzilla is, or do we like discuss how we first got into the big guy?
Oh, yeah, so Godzilla first appeared in 1954 with the Toho film Gojira, yeah, where a monster is woken up by atomic tests and wreaks havoc on the coast of many ships before eventually attacking the mainland of Tokyo in a very slow and destructive path, before eventually being stopped by a weapon that can be proved almost as dangerous as the atomic bomb itself. And
Player.
yeah, the oxygen destroyer. And it was thought that, okay, well, that was the one and done thing. It takes a lot from movies like King Kong and The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. In fact, that's what inspired the producer, Tomoyuki Tanaka. He looked out the window, seeing the waves, and wondered, what if something massive lived under there after seeing, the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms? And they thought, well, we're going to make one of those ourselves. And, it was so successful, it spawned a sequel. And that spawned a few other films like Rodan and Mothra before they came back to Godzilla in one of the most memorable clashes in cinema history, King Kong versus Godzilla.
Oh, okay. Because I actually King Kong came after the sequel, which was like not really that good, all things considered.
Yeah. That sequel came out immediately after, but point is, they started making these guys on an almost yearly basis, and those became exported and dubbed, and that's how Godzilla became known on VHS and Sunday movie matinees. And he became a worldwide icon over the course of the last 60 years, appearing in films made by Japan and other nations, mostly America, and twice. The first attempt being infamously a misfire in the eyes of many, and then of course the second one is now what we're currently witnessing with the legendary Pictures era, starting with Godzilla 2014. It's called Godzilla, but we're at that point where if your movie shares, as we said in Halloween, if your movie shares the same title with the original one that came before it, you're going to have to start separating it by the year.
Right. There was
And recent,
the two original like dubbings, Godzilla King of the Monsters, the original. I mean, not the other one that was pretty awesome, and also Godzilla 1985, which that one had product placement forced and heat stuff on it.
so yeah, I mean, chances are, even if you haven't seen one of his movies, you know what Godzilla is. He's usually described as a dinosaurian, almost T-Rex, iguanodon combination with stegosaur plates on his back, like spikes on his back. So even if you haven't seen Godzilla, you've probably seen something influenced by Godzilla, like say children of Nickelodeon might remember Riptar, who is clearly a Godzilla-inspired dinosaur for the kids to love.
I still remember the Runaway Reptar VHS special, which they were pretty much homaging like all the typical niches in Godzilla movies, right down to like the weird, awkward way they dubbed lines. And also, of course, the video games like Rampage also takes cues from Godzilla or other kaiju monsters.
If I remember, someone actually said that Lizzie, which is usually considered the Godzilla analog, actually bears some resemblance to Ymir, the monster from Earth, I think they call it. It was an old Ray Harryhausen project, and the jowls that Lizzie has does look a little more like Ymir, but it's a Ymir Godzilla you know, concept, I think. But yeah, so as you can probably guess, if you've been under my channel for a long time, you know that I am a huge Godzilla fan. And I'm usually the kind of guy who try to spread the word of Godzilla as much as I can. Some people will write it off like, oh, you know, big dumb movies with bad dubbing. Guys in rubber pajamas, wrestling around cardboard boxes, and I say, you're half right. There's actually a lot more to it, especially the ones directed by director Ishiro Honda. So that's kind of a small overview of Godzilla, and let's go ahead and go into how we got into it. And I guess I'll go first. So naturally, as a young boy, I, like many boys my age, would get into dinosaurs. Because I don't know, something about dragons and dinosaurs was something that just naturally, just attracts the magnet for the child mind. And Godzilla himself looks like a dinosaur. So there were toys of him, of course, and then there were, you know, books and everything. And one moment, could you lower that down a little again? I think it's picking up. Yeah, all right. Movie in next door. Yeah, that's kind of my first little soiree was, you go to flea markets and you see those rubberized Imperial Godzilla toys, which is like usually it's him with like white bright eyes with the pupil very pointed in the center, red lips and silver spines with maybe a silver streak on the chest. I'm sure even if you probably have seen something like that at one point or another at some swap meet or flea market.
Uh huh.
Yeah. So, of course, I always had to have fond memories of that. And then, of course, around the 90s, Godzilla was being brought back to the big screen with the TriStar film. And I got into that, and then I was really hooked. And then the animated series followed suit. And around that time, Godzilla 2000 was coming out, and that got me really hyped. And I started collecting the VHSs because there was a small video store in the mall called Sam Goody, which was a subset of Suncoast, which I think is now FYE, but basically it was the FYE for that day. And they had the VHS collection of Godzilla. Like my first Godzilla film on tape was probably Terror Mechagodzilla by Scimitar, and that one had a black cover with a stylized Godzilla shooting a Mechagodzilla with flame breath, and Mechagodzilla looks way different than his actual appearance in the movie, but that always stuck with me. And then I bought Godzilla and Mothra: The Battle for Earth. As you probably go out through this talk, you're going to find out that I'm not only am I a big Godzilla fan, I'm also very partial to the winged, fluffy goddess that is Mothra.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I started collecting the films. What really helped me get into it was the internet, because when Godzilla '98 was coming out, they had this website. It was called the Godzilla Database, and it was almost like a proto Wikipedia, but it was just made just to promote the movie. So it was like the classic Godzilla. It's called the Classic Godzilla Database, and it had everything from 54 all the way up to Destroyer, which was the newest one at the time. It had like gallery images. Like this was 1998 internet, so it wasn't like high def images, but it was still enough for you to go like, oh, that's when he had the fire on his veins. That's when he fought that weird crab looking demon. That was my mindset back then. And of course, there was fan websites. I'm sure G fans are familiar with the names Rodan's Roost or Barry's Temple of Godzilla, sites that have either been abandoned or have been lost to time. And those ones are filled with fan reviews and uh, you know, fan art and just information about the movies, dubs and subs. So it was like, the internet really helped pave me into a Godzilla fan.
Right.
So that's kind of a story about how I got on the path. And what about you? How did you get yourself all, mixed up in all this?
Well, you're probably gonna all look at me very, very weird when I say what it was. Um, so back in my childhood days, like Cartoon Network was so kind of in its young heyday where it didn't have that many original shows, so it was kind of playing like oldies or what have you. And so one of the shows happened to be the Hanna Barbera version of Godzilla, where it's a American version of Godzilla, and he's assisted by this group of people on this raft, and they have means of communicating with this beast called Yadzuki. And I don't like, but I guess at least the whole like Godzilla portion of it, where he's like fighting giant monsters and all that, would kind of like managed to keep my attention. And then around that same time, the TriStar 98 movie was coming on. I remember being so hyped for that for no apparent reason other than the fact that, oh, hey, it's Godzilla. It's got this thing that's like the show I watched, and it's like this giant monster. And like, I was obsessed with that movie. Like, I think it was literally my first drive in theater experience ever. And I think I just remember it was drizzling just a little bit. So obviously, it had the same feel of the setting as the movie was going. But yeah, I even went so far as to literally dress up as Godzilla of that movie for that Halloween, I think.
Well, you have one up over me. I still have yet to dress up as Godzilla in any way.
So, and um, then I did figure out that there were other old movies. I think I did manage to watch one of them. I think it was the either the Mecha Godzilla 2 or the Mothra one for when they showed it on like one of those premium stuff like HBO or stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, my first actual real Godzilla movie I can remember watching was Godzilla 2000. And I remember renting that VHS vehemently in my own hometown um, video rental store, which is still standing to this day. I think they probably. I haven't gone there yet in a while, but it's still the same business. But
That's
I
good.
remember getting that VHS over and over and over and over again. It was just that good, honestly. And um, I do. I think I managed to finally get to see these most of these movies thanks to Jonesy streaming them, and like I think watching like the original Gojira just kind of like really like cemented that this whole like series like actually does have like standing with to actually look into, and eventually I did manage to get all the movies. Like it's got the Heisei stuff first mostly, the sequel run, and then uh, I do remember like, for the hyper King of the Monsters, I had to really kick it up a notch to fight tooth and nail to get all the rest of the movies, which I did.
Oh yeah. I think you have almost more of them than I do, actually.
No, I literally have all of them, man. The only ones I don't have
Then,
are
yeah,
the anime ones, but they haven't put them out in video, so
and I wonder if they ever will since Netflix owns them. Well, some stuff that starts on streaming eventually does get a physical release.
yeah.
But
But
yeah, I'm missing a majority of. I got one or two Showa films I don't own physically. Like I don't own Godzilla vs. Gigan, even though I love that one. I had it on VHS, but I don't have it on DVD. I never got Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster or Son of Godzilla. Those are hard to find nowadays. Megalon had a limited run. I couldn't get that one. And I got mostly the classic media set, which includes like the most first films, like from Gojira all the way up to Monster Zero, and then the Terrific Godzilla one that came in that set too. So yeah, I think you may have. I have all the Heiseis, and I have all the Millennia, but yeah, my resource to always get them was FYU or Sam Goody. Those were like the best places to get them. Uh, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I think the last
I
one
think you may have one up me.
I think the last one I had to collect was Son of Godzilla, and
Actually, if I remember, you were actually a little livid when Criterion officially announced they were doing that Showa collection set, and you're thinking, I just bent over backwards to
they
pick these guys
literally
up on the markets.
they literally announced that the moment I finally get the last one. It's like, whew, man, I finally did it. I managed to get all the old movies like on different DVD formats and medias, and then Criterion says, "Oh, hey, we got this Godzilla collection." Going, you son of a bitch!
What's yeah? Sadly, I heard that that Criterion set comes in that big, digipack book that's like the size of a vinyl cover, so it's going to be hard to stick in your collection anyway. Although some fans have come through and actually made hard cases where you could store all of them in the same box, kind of like the Star Wars Complete Saga.
Yeah.
But yeah, oh, just for those at home who aren't as well versed, you might hear us throw terms around like Showa, Heisei, Millennium, and Reiwa. That's a shorthand term for referring to the eras, which is named for the emperors running at the time. For example, the original Godzilla films ran from 54 to 75, were set in the Showa period during the Showa, dynasty or regime, the Showa emperor. And then he passed again to the next one, who was called Heisei. That's why we call the films from the 80s onward Heisei, even though technically the Reiwa period started in 2016. So from 1985 to 2016, that's all Heisei. So even the Millennium films are Heisei, but because they started after 2000, people refer to them as Millennium. Like it's like a habit. Once you start saying it, you just say, "Oh, that's a show. That's a Heisei. That's a." And hell, technically, the first quote unquote Heisei film is actually a Showa film because 85 with 84 was still the Showa period.
Right. But all the Heisei movies pretty much are built off of that.
So yeah. So anyway, yeah, I one time for the hype for Godzilla 2014 and live stream was still a thing. I had my collection of films that I could get, and I would play the movies in the marathons for the audience who would come and visit them, and that's how a lot of them got exposed to this. I remember vividly when we did Godzilla and Monster Battle for Earth. A lot of you guys were like rolling your eyes so hard it was sounding like bowling balls every time the planet Earth is suffering. You need to do something about the Earth. Came up, you're like, okay, we get it. The Earth is in danger. Like you said, I think you said not even Captain Planet went on this long about the environment.
Oh, little did I know that there would be that one Godzilla movie that actually did involve the environment, and it was, oh goodness, that was a trip.
Ah, yes, the famous Godzilla versus the Smog Monster, aka Godzilla versus Hedorah, where I'm sure anybody who's heard of it knows that's quite a trip movie because that's the one where out of nowhere at one point in a nightclub a guy must have been laced with something. He's just seeing everybody with fish faces. You have a monster that graphically kills civilians like in a way where you go like yikes, like I can't believe they let that get away in a PG film, no less. No, this was rated G back in the day. Way back in the poster, it would say rated G for general audiences to see two monsters slap each other, but at the same time, you're going to be seeing men disintegrate from smog.
Yeah, and
But the
I don't even think we need to describe it. Everyone's pretty much seen it.
something you don't see every day.
Uh,
Yes, as everyone knows, there's that famous moment where Godzilla flies. So, yeah. So why is it you think that Godzilla has such a lasting appeal outside of his nuclear roots?
Honestly, I think it has to do with the fact that it's the most absurd concept you could actually even imagine. You have a huge mutated dinosaur that's powered by nuclear radiation or atomic radiation, whatever the time it is, and it goes off rampaging around Japan. And sometimes along the way, there's going to be aliens or underwater civilizations or people from the future that attack Earth just because they're pissed off. And all the while, you're just having all these like weird eccentric people just watching and having to survive all this chaos going on.
Hmm.
And
But
all around,
yeah,
and also we can't forget that also that the the actors in these suits, like, yeah, I know it's like, oh, guys, rubber suit. It's like, yeah, but it's these guys in the rubber suit. These guys who actually put personality and influence into these monsters to make them so likable and like memorable. And, like, would you ever really think of Godzilla or like just always think about like how he acts if there was some other guy other than whoever they had in that suit?
well, there was always you know, fan discussions about who, portrayed it well. Of course, the most famous and longest running of them at the time was Haruo Nakajima, who, played the role, as he was a stagehand at Toho, I think. And he also, not only did he do Godzilla, he also had a few small parts in Kurosawa films. Like he was a masked samurai in one of them. So like he was just a hard worker and a happy-go-lucky guy. And to make sure he had this philosophy that in order to be irreplaceable and and valuable, you have to almost be like you're invincible, like shrug off things that most actors would say, "Hey, I'm not gonna go back in there after that happened." Like when he nearly tripped and fell in a tank and drowned, or when a set of explosives blew up through the suit and near his groin area, he was still like brushed it off of me. Like he wanted to make the crew think that he was almost super powerful, invincible. That they think this is the only guy who can do it. So he never complained about the conditions, even though these were rough. Like these suits under the studio lights would get like very hot, and you'd be pulling out cups of sweat after each take. Like the first Godzilla suit they made was more about the look than functionality in '54. That they could pull him out of the suit and it would still stand because the rubber was that thick. So
But
they had to
I
like cut the
I remember you saying one of these days you wanted to make a biography picture for that guy.
yeah yeah Mr. Godzilla. That was always an idea. Like but yeah, I guess the thing is that it's so funny. He has all this recognition, yet the world doesn't ever really get to see his face, and I think he likes it that way. They're not thinking about him; they're thinking about the performance and the characters that he brings to life, whether it be Rodan in the '56 film or Gaira in War of the Gargantuas. Like he was a consummate professional and a very likable guy. I'm sure you've seen all the fan pictures where they meet him at conventions, and he'll do like the classic Godzilla karate pose that they know the Godzilla would do, with his hands up in the air.
Right.
Yeah. He passed away several years ago, but gracefully. So I'd say like he will always be remembered as one of the best. In fact, when King of the Monsters had its end credits, and at the very end they showed a tribute to a picture of him smiling with the Godzilla suit mask off, like in the tank, and
Or
they gave a
or that one badass homage commercial from a coffee company of all things, but
oh yeah.
like that thing was just badass to watch. Just like especially when you see he just pretty much pulls himself together and just shows like an unremarkable Godzilla performance.
Well, yeah, like they actually rebuilt the suit from the ground up. It's made from modern tech, so it's more flexible and a little more comfortable, but it's still as big and classic looking as the vintage one from the '50s. But yeah, so other guys who had personality were like Kenpachi Satsuma, who played him for most of the Heisei era. In fact, I think he was the one who walked out of '98 saying it doesn't have the same spirit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with him on that. I don't know. I
Uh,
have the weirdest love-hate relationship with 98, even though I just said that I just loved it to death as a kid. So
Oh, on top of that, when DA asked DeviantArt asked a question about favorite creatures, he thought, well, I'm going to bite the bullet and say Zilla just because no one else is going to say it.
well, I mean, my backing is mostly with the cartoon version. So
Yeah, that's more Godzilla than. In fact, I think even one of the producers in Japan actually said that Godzilla Junior in the Godzilla the series honored Godzilla, way more. That he deserves to be called Godzilla because for fans famously know when the Godzilla '98 redesign reappeared in Final Wars, it was given the unceremonious name of Zilla because the director believed it took the god out of Godzilla, and they made that point perfectly clear by killing him in 22 seconds.
yeah, it's just one laser blast of all things.
A tail whip and a heat breath.
But
uh,
yeah. So where were you now?
well, we were just talking about what makes them last so long. I mean, plus there's a bit of fun in it, but there's also the morality play that happens sometimes with the human stories. Like I think really good Godzilla movies have a good human story going concurrently with it, where sometimes you almost forget you're watching a monster movie till you see them pop back in and go, oh yeah, that's it. Because sometimes the human stories go like super zany, like in Godzilla versus Megalon, you have a scientist and his brother had built a robot in their garage called Jet Jaguar who can fly and all that stuff. And out of nowhere, when the Cetopians capture him, Jet Jaguar learns how to reprogram himself to operate on his own volition. And at one point in the movie, just inexplicably grow to kaiju size to fight the Megalon. And they say he must have programmed himself to do it. I'm all, well, that's quite the ass pull.
Yeah, but aside from like the original Gojira or like the um the Shin Godzilla one, I don't know that many like other Godzilla movies that have the human aspect like having the such gravitas.
Oh
Like
yes.
like if you get down to it, it's all they're kind of silly. Um, I think maybe the closest one I think of is Godzilla versus King Ghidorah,
Oh
especially
yeah.
the relationship between the Godzilla monster and one of the old soldiers from World War II.
At the same time, that's the same movie where you have a guy a robot walk out of a flaming explosion a la Terminator, but with less budget, and then run on a treadmill to get close to the target that he's looking after.
Oh wait, oh yeah, the Godzilla versus Biollante. That one definitely had some real human feels going on.
Well, yeah, because in that one you have a grieving scientist who lost his daughter in a terrorist explosion, putting her cells in a rose, her spirit in there, and then when that starts dying, he gets the bright idea to put Godzilla cells in there, and well, what happens happens.
I
But
think the Godzilla 2000 is it obviously it's not serious, but it's the one movie that I think the English dub like trumps entirely. In fact, I think even the original producers of um, the movie say, yeah, it was literally made just for the English dub.
they said that they had made Godzilla 2000 in a hurry to wash the taste of Godzilla '98 from fans because in Japan it really didn't do well in Japan, so they thought this is a disaster, so we got to bring him back out of retirement. And they admitted they rushed through it, and there were things that they said they probably would have done differently, and you can kind of see it when you watch the raw Japanese dub of Godzilla 2000. The pacing is not quite there. It doesn't the roars don't aren't there sometimes. It's just kind of like it's I mean stuff's there, the concepts are there, but the American version just refined it and put it more to a more cohesive, quicker experience that is a lot more fun. And that's why people remember it fondly. I mean, hell, you're talking about a movie that was promoted using Rob Zombie's Super Beast.
GMK made Godzilla pretty much be scary all over again, and had the implications of why he's back is makes you go, oh shit. Well, when you put it like that, that's like fucking heavy.
Yeah, like apparently he is the souls of all the war dead killed in World War II that are pissed off that they're being forgotten. All the crimes that they've done are being glossed over. So they're thinking, Godzilla will be our instrument of our revenge, and he's basically a ghoul. He's just this unstop Jason Voorhees-esque unstoppable destructive machine.
Yeah, it really hits home when you see him pretty much like taking down a hospital, and the point of view is from someone that's healing, and obviously are incapable of escaping such an attack. In fact, I think that one was when he tail whipped it. So
Yep. Yeah, like that girl actually survived a Godzilla attack earlier in the movie when he attacked the islands. And it's kind of like a metaphor for the bomb when they said that, like, even if you survive the initial encounter, eventually the bomb's radiation will kill you. So, in some sort of symbolic way, even if you survive the first Godzilla attack, if Godzilla's coming for you, he's still going to get you. So it's like that's that's a heavy implication right there, and it's almost played like with black humor, like, oh, she thinks she's safe, and then the tail just comes out and shatters the building and collapses it, and you go like, ooh, maybe not.
um, oh, there's the Mothra versus Godzilla, the original one that has
Mm-hmm.
like its own, like obviously all these Godzilla movies have like morals and like lessons and all that. I think that one was about corporations like overtaking the natural order, and that's no good.
Mm-hmm. Because yeah, that one was famous also for because Mothra was actually the top marquee in that one because she had had a very successful movie like 2 years prior, and so they thought let's bring Godzilla back to fight Mothra, and 'cause it's kind of like Mothra is like the center of that one, and Godzilla happens to be an unstoppable behemoth, and it also marks the last time he would be a purely malevolent force because in all the Godzilla movies up to that point, he was always the bad monster who woke up and had to be stopped. After those movies, he started going to the reluctant, okay, I'll help you, but only because I don't like the monster that's giving you trouble, to eventually just being a full blown superhero.
Right. And then on the opposite side, you have like the type of movies that are just batshit crazy, but like you're really awesome entertainment, like the likes of Destroy All Monsters, where you literally have aliens trying to take over all the monsters that have at that point trying to be peaceful and trying to live out your life on Monster Island, but have just been riled up, and it almost brings the Earth to complete chaos. And then, of course, they do that again in Godzilla Final Wars.
Which is also off the wall batshit crazy, where you have everybody fighting, and you got human mutants fighting in Matrix style fights. You got them shooting up against Ebera, the sea monster. You have them, the monsters are playing soccer in the middle of their match when they're using Gears as a kicking ball.
And like you have humans that are literally fighting giant monsters themselves. Like this was like years before Attack on Titan was like a big thing. So
Oh god, now I'm very tempted to play the Kyorgi Jaeger song during the fight with Ebera.
but yeah, it's like I think maybe that's the reason why this series is prevalent, because it goes like to almost every like point in genre you could think of. Like how in like most like the middle of like the Showa era almost kind of takes on like a James Bond type of field, like especially with the human side of it, trying to figure out mysteries and all that stuff.
And you usually have like secret agents with P2K Walter pistols and everything. And hell, one of the soundtracks flat out sounds like a James Bond soundtrack during, again, the Sea Monster, which was in the 60s. They're being attacked by Ebra, and you have this little darn, 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 darn playing in the background. You're going, uh, uh, are they?
Uh,
Yeah, you got
but
a lot more.
another reason why it's prevalent because of the other co-stars, the other monsters that have just as much personality and identity as Godzilla. Like you have Rodan, the fire terror from the volcanoes, who sometimes is good, sometimes is bad, sometimes is just kind of the star stream of the whole bunch.
And sometimes he's the Rodan Ramsey, where he's just hyper aggressive to everybody. Like you don't matter. It doesn't matter if you're Ghidorah or Destroyer or whatever. He's like, I'm gonna poke you. Like easy,
And
Rodan. You don't have.
then, and then you have the ever beautiful, graceful Mothra, who's always a good monster in all the movies. Like, if I feel like if they ever try to make Mothra into a bad monster, it's like, nope, you just lost us. There's no way we would buy that. Like
Like
the only way they get away with
technically,
that, the only way they would get away with that is if they is the Batra, which is obviously the negative version of Mothra.
yeah. What's funny is that the only time Mothra's ever been a quote unquote antagonistic monster, not of her own will, was in Destroy All Monsters when they were controlling all the monsters. But after they broke that, she was on Earth's side. So yeah, you're right. There hasn't been like a evil Mothra, and Batra is
But
not
that wasn't
evil.
by her
Hmm.
volition. That was like obviously them trying to mind wipe her. So
Yeah, yeah. Like Batra is not evil. Batra is more like Red Hood to Mothra's Superman, where uh, Mothra always believes in better. Even though the Earth is suffering, she says things can improve. Batra is like, you gotta make things. The world only makes sense if you force it to, and she. I don't know. They didn't really specify Batra's gender, but I think fans colloquially refer to Batra as a he, and he he's very more vengeful against mankind for their violence against the Earth.
yeah, I think the Countess kind of confirmed the Batra as a he. And it kind of makes sense if you think about it. It's kind of like the whole yin yang deal.
But yeah, it's so beautiful when the two work together. I mean, other than the preachy environmental crap, that one actually is, people say this. If you watch Godzilla and Mothra as a Mothra movie than a Godzilla movie, you'll be a little more satisfied. Because if you're going there expecting Godzilla, he's kind of like only in there for two whole scenes.
Yeah, but they're the climax, so obviously it works out. Obviously, you have the always antagonistic counter rival King Ghidorah.
Or Ghidorah, or Ghidra. I mean, that guy has so many pronunciations.
Yeah, but I always go for the one that the Heisei series did. So it's always Ghidorah.
Ghidorah. Kill him, King Ghidorah. Ghidra will show her. We will show you King Ghidra.
Really, I could have
But you're right.
sworn like when Heisei, like definitely in the trailers for Heisei, it's like one of them for Godzilla versus King Ghidorah. Like it had that one moment where that guy just like realizes, oh shit, it's that monster. The King Ghidorah, worse than Godzilla.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
So
I guess that
In
pronunciation
Japan,
kind of stuck with me.
yeah, in
Uh,
Japan, it's kind of close to Ghidra in Japan too. Ghidra.
yeah, I always kind of stick to Japanese versions, so it's like it King Ghidorah. I think Godzilla's the one that I always kind of swap between back and forth. Mothra will always be Mothra to me because that she is just that graceful and deserves that title.
I don't know.
But
Mosoda is not a bad name either.
yeah, and obviously there's also the Mecha Godzilla, which was the bad guy at first, then was the good guy second, and was then became like a well good, but you really did some really bad shit to get me to this point.
And of course, he even made a cameo in the book and movie versions of Ready Player One.
Which honestly, when I saw that in the movie, I was like, well, this is like the only way we're gonna see a modern take on Mechagodzilla. There's no way they're gonna ever pull that off in the reboot movies.
Uh, I'm just gonna leave it there.
Yeah,
But
there's
yeah,
like there's other monsters too. There's um oh no, I forgot that one. Gigan, that
oh,
weird alien monstrosity that has like claws for hands and laser eyes.
and looks like a giant space chicken in the mind of some.
Yeah, there's obviously Godzilla's friend for some reason. I guess you could loosely term it Anguirus.
A spiky ball that really like just a like a.
I would think it's like a spiky balled armadillo slash ankylosaur combination.
I see a little more hedgehog in there too.
Well, I say armadillo because he kind of rolls up, but I guess hedgehog makes more sense. It's just the spike back too. So,
Has anyone painted Anguirus blue?
uh, sometimes there's some lesser knowns that don't have as much screen time, like King Caesar. But oh boy, his first appearance, that one was kind of like a mouthful.
It was he had to be woken up by a musical number, like a full-on musical number, uninterrupted.
Yeah, and then obviously there are monsters that were introduced in Heisei or never seen again, like Biolante and the well, it's kind of in the air. They always say it's the monster that killed Godzilla entirely, but it really wasn't. Godzilla just kind of died on his own in that one, but it was the monster, the Destroyer.
Which has to be always shouted if you're James Rolfe. Oh, by the way, that's another side note. James Rolfe is probably one of the most high-profile guys I've seen to be an admitted Godzilla fan. I know there's people like Mark Hamill's a Godzilla fan. You know, I'm hoping, Junkie XL is a huge Godzilla. Like, there's people that are Godzilla fans, but like, for me, like watching the internet, it was crazy hearing that. Oh, hey, this angry video game nerd guy really likes Godzilla. That makes me feel happy.
Yeah, James kind of helped really pique my interest more in seeing these old Godzilla movies. Like somewhere I thought, oh, that just sounds kind of ridiculous to watch. It's like, well, no, there's this one moment that he talked about. It's like, well, I definitely got to see that. So
Yeah, his Cinemassacre's Monster Madness Year 2 Godzilla-thon.
but yeah, like we could
But
go on about listing the monsters, but it just goes to show that this series really has a huge roster, and like anytime that a different monster comes along, you're gonna be in for a treat to see how Godzilla has to handle fighting them and how things will go out.
yeah, because one thing about the early Showa films is they were definitely made with a lot of imagination, like a lot of creativity to make those detailed pagodas and sets for like to look so real. Like all this, think about it. You're making the most perfect miniature of a real life building in, say, Nagoya or something, and you're proud of it. And you're even more proud because you say, in less than a second, it's about to be nothing because the monster's going to run through it. And you better hope the camera is rolling right and the monster hits his mark. Because sometimes, I think famously, there's this one blooper, I think, where they're rehearsing for Godzilla 2000 when Godzilla has to stick his claw into the building ahead of him, and they were just in the rehearsal. The cameras aren't rolling, so they're saying, "Okay, you're going to put it right here, right?" And he, in the studio, says, "You mean here?" And then he just shattered the whole thing in one. So they had to pause and reset so they can actually get it right.
Oh, that sounds like a chore.
But yeah, but those guys are dedicated to their craft. Like there was this beautiful documentary. I forgot the name of it, but it was basically talking to veterans of the Japanese tokusatsu industry, and they would be explaining what went into it. I think it was called Big in Japan or something like that, or bringing Godzilla down to size. And this British guy is going around talking about how uh, you can turn someone as 6 foot tall in a rubber suit, looking like they're 200 stories tall, like that kind of deal, and talking with veterans. It was like the guys who actually worked on the Tsuburaya films. Like to make a volcanic eruption, they had a mountain submerged in water, and had these liquid dyes come out, pressurized. And when you film that upside down, it looks exactly like a volcano going, and it's a very nice effect. And same goes for the monsters. Like you look at someone like say Gabra on Godzilla Revenge, you're all like, who dreamed that up and what were they on? Like I think it's supposed to be like some type of Oni demon frog monster. And uh, I mean, you just look at Gabra. That's all I gotta say. Just look at the guy.
I think they were just kind of like running on fumes at that point. I think that was like literally after Destroy All Monsters. Like, oh, jeez, you just exhausted ourselves. Every single monster we had on hand on the screen. What are we gonna do
Plus the
next? I have no
plus
clue. Grab will
Yeah.
get
Plus,
whatever he can.
yeah. Plus, the longtime effects master had passed away barely a few months into the production of Godzilla's Revenge. So he only had a handful of effects done, and they have to do it without him. So I'm pretty sure that put a damper on what they were planning for. Uh, One common thing that became a staple of the Showa series, unfortunately, is the appropriation of stock footage, where they would take some reused footage from a previous movie and have to put it in to make up for a shorter budget, because at that point the oil crisis was really hurting Japan and they had to slash their budgets, and the effects budgets kept getting smaller and smaller. That's why instead of fighting in these huge elaborate cities, eventually they always kept fighting in that same magical dirt field the Power Rangers fight their monsters in.
Or sometimes just fighting on water.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, yeah. So the stock footage sometimes you'd be like, "Hey, I saw that scene." It's actually really a little amusing and embarrassing whenever you see like, oh, that's clearly a daytime shot, but they darkened the exposure so that it looks like it's happening at night. And you're like, no, I still see the blue sky behind you.
But yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like we're all about the whole like, oh, we're having movie universe, yeah, the Marvel universe, the DC universe, and the MonsterVerse. But the fact of the matter is, the MonsterVerse actually already kind of had their day going, like during the Showa era, where like we discussed, there's movies like Rodan and Mothra, and like other types of movies that had all the giant monsters that would all be united together and destroy all monsters. So technically, Japan was kind of already ahead of the game. Although I would argue that Universal was ahead with their monsters too. So like,
Well, yeah, Universal. That always comes up first. Like that was the original
it's like
MCU.
everyone's always
The
saying, "Oh, Marvel's got the whole universe thing down. Why can't everyone be like them?" It's like, you fucking serious? Like you got Universal monsters and Shaw Godzilla movies that shit all over these things ahead of time.
On top of that, though, it's kind of embarrassing that Universal like imploded their universe with their first outro and with the Darkverse.
Like I haven't seen it, but like I honestly I heard Dracula Untold wasn't that bad. Why would they just try to ignore that?
I don't know, but I guess it's. I feel like we talked about this in our Halloween episode already. Once they got Tom Cruise on board, that was when like they sealed its fate.
Yeah, what wasn't the other movie Edge of Tomorrow just kind of like defeated box office that? I think I was watching Treehouse of Horror and like the comic book guy said like yeah, that's kind of what, yeah, that's like Tom Cruise fatigue kind of set in.
He did Jack Reacher, Edge of Tomorrow, and Oblivion, all within the span of a few years, close to each other. I think.
But strangely enough, the Mission Impossible movies, nobody's like tired of him when he does that. But like that's his movie series that he made that series his own. So it
he,
makes sense to see him in that. But like in any other movie, it's like, okay, dude, you get it. You can do your own stunts and all that. That's great. Can you just kind of like stick to movies that you know that you're definitely fit to be in? Like, who in the right mind would ever imagine a mummy movie with Tom Cruise in it?
it did have a nice cover of Painted Black in the trailer.
But yeah, anyways, the um,
Imagine Tom Cruise in a Godzilla movie.
yeah, well, I'm sure he would probably say, okay, we need to actually build a giant monster that I can get stomped on.
Or he says, I'm not going to scale this green wall. We're actually going to make a wall of scales, actual scales, so I can climb up it like if I'm really climbing up Godzilla's back."
Yeah. I I don't know how we can segue it, but I just really want to talk about like the old Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee game that I used to play a lot in my childhood.
Oh, that's another thing. Godzilla is also prime for video games, but as the 80 Angry Video Game Nerd Godzilla episode will tell you, some of them were more hit and miss. Like, why can't we have two monsters simply fighting? Why does it have to be an eyesight quiz?
Yeah. Although the first one that he showcased, the NES one, was actually pretty good.
Oh, yeah, he actually
And then,
liked Monster of Monsters.
and then all of a sudden it gets its own creepypasta after that. It's like, okay, that's random. Where the hell did that come from?
Yeah, pretty deep lore in that pasta too. Like Red is pretty well known for people who are like in the Godzilla fandom.
Like, what's the deal with that? All I know is that there's a creepypasta associated with Godzilla the NES game. Like,
Yeah, I haven't heard it fully, but there's like a whole write up on it and everything.
yeah,
Like, of course.
the the second NES game just looks like garbage, and then there's a cutesy Game Boy one, and then there's Super Godzilla, which I'm pretty sure you're gonna vouch for at least.
Yeah, I actually owned it.
So, I I guess it seems like it's both complicated and easy to play with. I guess.
Yeah, but what in the heck are they doing? Apparently, there's colorized footage of G54 for the celebration.
What?
Huh.
Where? When? What?
On Twitter, it doesn't. Someone said this, just showing it off, but yeah. Anyway, okay. Where were we? Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, the Godzilla games of the mid '90s were a lot to be left desired for some people, especially one that almost made its ways to shores, Godzilla Kaiju Daikessen, which was pretty much a Super Godzilla tournament fighter like Street Fighter, but with Godzilla characters.
But yeah, this the Destroy All Monsters Melee. The first time I ever saw it was like these little blurb reviews that Tsunami did. So getting to see it, like, wow, that looks really cool. I actually want to play that. And it's definitely hard when you have to fight the final boss Mecha Godzilla because even Tom agrees like Mecha is really cheap.
Yeah, I got that I got that game, and of course, a friend of mine from middle school actually uh showed me that, and I played it and loved the heck out of it. I just got my own copy, and I spent many hours after school uh messing with that game.
But the real bitch is like the newer Godzilla games are really a bitch to try to collect. Like I still haven't gotten Godzilla Save the Earth for the Xbox yet, and I was very lucky to manage to get a copy of Godzilla Unleashed for the Wii. But heaven help you if you ever can find a cheap method of getting Godzilla for the PS4. Like, holy hell.
And makes you wonder if we'll ever see any more Godzilla games in the immediate future. I know they're supposed to be something that's supposed to coincide with Godzilla versus Kong, but that's neither here nor there.
I'm sure we'll see it. It probably got pushed just for meet along with the movie.
Oh, but and the one thing that for sure I can vouch for is that Godzilla sure was good at making a lot of toys. That's for sure.
I definitely remember. It was weird. The '98 there were a lot of action figures, obviously, but I didn't get a lot of those toys. Like the only Godzilla '98 toy I ever had was like it was a plushie, but it had like that plastic squeezable head on top.
Yeah, I had one of those too. He had like soft blue scoots in the back.
That's exactly what it was. But the Godzilla toy that I first had was I think it was one of the Heisei ones. There was I think America at that time we were making action figures for it. I got it at a Big Lots, so obviously you can imagine like how late in the game that was. But I still have it. It's like it's a short, stocky Godzilla, and it's like from time it's like the tail has kind of gotten loose, but it's still attached. But it it's hard to describe. It's really a chunky Godzilla, but it's like and that just made me feel like I actually had a piece of legit Godzilla memorabilia. Like
So when you say chonky, is that like, oh Lord, he coming?
like I'm talking Thunder Thighs.
Yeah, that's a Heisei one.
Yeah, but I have managed to get a lot of the Bandai ones, like Final Wars, got Gigan, gotten like uh, Mothra from one of uh, her spin-off movies during the Heisei.
Mm-hmm. Which that
Gira,
would be her.
the
That,
original Godzilla, and I did manage to get a couple of. Oh yeah, the Godzilla 2000 because I definitely wanted to get that because I love Godzilla 2000 and I like the version that they designed for him. And obviously, I got some NECAs, so I got the 2014 Godzilla, and I managed to scoop up the 54 one just as NECA was like closing their line out. So
yeah, I got a few. I got of NECA the 64 Godzilla, 2014, and the a colorized version of the 54 Godzilla poster version. But yeah, and I my first Godzilla toy was actually the one of the Trendmasters Godzillas. I think it was a rubbery one that's kind of like a hard rubber, but he can still kind of be squeezed. Water can come out of him, but he's like a made for a missile launcher. I never had the missile, but he is like all green with silver scale, the scoots and red eyes.
yeah, I think my Godzilla figure was from Treadmasters too. So
I still like the ones where if you press their red button in their chest, they would their eyes would light up and they would do a
that's it.
roar.
That's the one I have. Like I remember there's this button on his chest, and I just it did nothing. I just thought it was broken. Maybe it did it at one point, but I don't remember when it stopped doing it.
And then of course I had a lot of Godzilla '98 toys. I had one that was a motorized where you had a remote control and you can like make him walk because he had wheels on his feet. He was rubbery though, so he's deteriorated long since then. I had a silver one that had a missile that flew out of his mouth, and I had the baby Godzilla. So it's like '98 was like this 97 and '98 were like the zenith of my kid mind and toy collecting. There was The Lost World and Godzilla '98. I didn't get everything, but I would always be happy if I got something from those movies.
I definitely remember the one thing from the '98 line that I remember I looked at and thought that was the most awesome thing you could ever have for anyone to collect was this Ultimate Godzilla, which is like this huge Godzilla. It was made so that it could swallow the human figures. So pretty much, it's like the modern day equivalent would be the Ultimate T Rex from the Mattel Jurassic World line.
Yep. And I believe that guy commands a pretty price nowadays.
Yeah, I imagine so.
And believe it or not, that toy was actually used for Final Wars when they did a scan to get a digital reference in there. They scanned that toy.
But that's completely awesome to think about that. That toy would actually help the filmmakers to get the models for it.
Then again, they said they weren't really going for accuracy. They kind of wanted to show that the CG looked a little flimsy so that they can see how the suitmation was superior by comparison.
Which is funny because even their CGI that they attempted with Godzilla 2000 wasn't really all that talk.
They've gotten better since then. Look at Shin Godzilla.
Yeah, but that was years after that. It was like, what was it? Like,
16 years,
well, Final Wars came out in 2004, so
12 years.
yeah.
But yeah, and oh, that's another thing too. Godzilla can sometimes be a bear to collect on physical media.
I just got done telling you about that.
I know, but I'm saying like probably makes you giggle. Not that all of them are on HBO Max currently.
Yeah, don't have that. Probably get it for
Yeah,
Christmas, but just kind of mostly waiting for Zack Snyder's Justice League to drop to actually get it. So
Yep, I'm in that same boat actually. Unless they say tomorrow that Godzilla vs Kong will be there on Christmas Day on HBO Max, I'm gonna say like, shut up and take my money. Although I want to see that sucker on the big screen in IMAX.
If they ever announced it like that, I'd be like, well, just piss away, just like the whole theater experience by that shit. This giant monsters should be seen on a giant screen for God's sakes.
Don't you mean for Godzilla's sake?
I was thinking about that, but I just was holding myself back. I'm not the pun type of person.
Yeah. Clearly. But so I would say my first theatrical Godzilla experience was '98, but if people are not counting that, then actually it was Godzilla 2014.
Yeah, pretty much the same boat. Although maybe I'm. Yeah, no, I did. I don't think I ever saw Godzilla 2000. I'm probably sure I would have tried to push my parents to actually see it, but I don't know. I don't think I actually made it to any theater that was close to us to watch it.
Any other G fans in the family?
Um, I know Dad's mostly a Rodan fan, but like he was always gung ho to see the newer movies. So
I'm sure King of the Monsters has made him a very happy Rodan fan.
yeah, but no, it's just pretty much him and me that like these things.
Yeah, it's pretty much me and my sister, but it's only a side effect from me exposing my sister to so much. She's very partial to Anguirus.
But yeah, I would have said my little brother maybe, but it was mostly for the video game. Maybe I don't know. Like I
Well, that's
tried to
a
talk to him about these movies, and he just said he wasn't interested.
yeah,
But
that's the sad thing about these movies is they are very niche. That's why I'm not surprised when they say that Godzilla, King of the Monsters, fared lower box office wise compared to a movie say like Secret Life of Pets 2 coming out in the same weekend. One jumped over the other, obviously.
yeah,
And people are saying when before what happened, this November was going to be a packed November. You're going to have Black Widow one week, and then you're going to have the Eternals one week. Then you're going to have No Time to Die and Raya the Last Dragon all coming within 3 weeks of each other. And Godzilla vs Kong is going to come out at the tail end of all that.
oh how fucking naive we all were.
And now it's going to come out in May, a few weeks after Black Widow, but it should be well out of Black Widow's way enough to actually be okay.
I'm having
That was the
huge doubt that everything's gonna be back to normal next year.
yeah.
It'll probably be like halfway through when the world just said, "Okay, we've had enough. We're literally just trying to get back to everything back to normal." It's like we're not even gonna count any more of this. This is like literally no different than SARS or like Ebola or any other viruses that hit us. So
Only that it is due to the rate of infection. I mean, if this thing made zombies, I'm pretty sure people would be a lot more urgent about solving this crisis. Unless they just want to go ahead and do experiments where they see if they can remember music and shooting guns. A little reference to what we did the other day. Yeah, we were watching Day of the Dead on, well, Day of the Dead just for giggles, and that was actually a pretty bam wow movie for me.
yeah, it's
Uh,
I think it's weird that honestly I really wish we could have seen George A. Romero to try to have done a Godzilla movie because I think it would have been his type of style to do. It's both poignant and it's also kind of funny, and that's kind of how he does his movies.
you know who would make a great Godzilla movie, and he'll be like fan servicing the hell out of it? Quentin Tarantino.
I mean, he would probably pull off the human stuff, but like,
Oh,
it,
he's gonna go like.
no, but Tarantino's kind of like the sticker for wanting to be things to be like how they were in the old days.
So he's gonna go back to men in suits under harsh lighting with blue matte painting backgrounds and just have them karate chop each other.
Yeah,
Then again, one of his favorite movies was The Mighty Picking Man, one of those rip-off Kong movies that came out around the time.
yeah.
Brian
So
and
that kind of leads you to hesitate a little bit. It's like, look, maybe we should get someone else to this.
Because maybe Tarantino might make Godzilla look too goofy, you think?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm still surprised he still wants to do that R-rated Star Trek movie he keeps talking about.
It's honestly at this point, I think it just has to be like mostly focused on Klingons at this point. It's like
No, I
that's
think
the only way I could ever think of it being an R-rated property.
well, they do stuff like time travel or holodeck, so I'm sure he can make some reason to keep it R-rated. Plus, Kirk bangs practically anything with a pulse, so well, any woman with a pulse, I mean. But it's funny, Star Trek is also mentioned in the list of long-running film series alongside Godzilla. Like the king of longest running film series is actually a British series called Faulty Towers. That's been going on for a long time. But Godzilla comes after that, and then the Bond franchise and a few others here and there. I'm sure the MCU has now surpassed the Bond franchise, though, in terms of how many entries it has, or it's getting there.
Yeah.
Uh, so, do you have a favorite Godzilla memory or moment that comes to mind?
Hmm. I think maybe you should start because I need to think of it for a moment.
Ah, yes. So, one moment that I'll always remember will be from Godzilla versus Gigan, and it's when Godzilla is fighting both Ghidorah and Gigan at the same time, and then Gigan takes flight and actually takes a swipe at Godzilla, and then this big red spurt of blood comes out of his arm, and that was the first time I bleed. So, in fact, I wonder if no one's ever made Gigan tell Godzilla, "Tell me, do you bleed? Because you will." Although, by the way, Gigan got a super metal redesign in Final Wars.
Yeah, I remember.
Whereas he was kind of a big, goofy green and gold chicken with these chubby hooks
Yeah,
in
his
his
size.
initial
You know
form.
what he needs? Fucking chainsaw hands.
Black leather, chainsaw hands, more spikes than. He looks like if you mixed a shredder with a xenomorph and threw in Gigan for good measure. He was almost very Giger-esque. Oh, but another moment I'll always remember is that uh, that moment you mentioned in Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, the Heisei version, where him and the businessman who was once a soldier who witnessed Godzilla before his mutation just have a tender moment with each other, and Godzilla he kind of commits seppuku by Godzilla, like he feels like he has to atone for leaving him to die on that island, and willingly accepts Godzilla blowing up the top of the building with him in it.
Okay, so it took me a while, but I definitely know that this one is one of my favorite memorable moments. It's pretty much the first time watching Godzilla 2014, and it wasn't the first time when he did the blue fire thing. It was the second time, and
Ah,
breaker
yes.
is he has the down the throat method where he pulled a fatality on the Udo.
Ah,
And
yes. The kiss of death, as fans have called it.
yeah, the kiss of death. And I just remember just going wild and nuts next to my dad. He was just like thumbs up at me and everything. Just like I could just feel the electricity in the audience. Just watch us like, yes, this is what we're here to watch Godzilla movie about. Not watching like Godzilla needing to nest 1,000 eggs at once to Madison Square Garden. No, this is the shit that we were all looking for.
And yet, one of your earliest stories made a direct reference to it. They even had a small mini debate about. I don't see what the problem was, but that was then. Sorry.
It's a decent monster movie. I'll say that the Zilla design is really good. It's lean, it's maneuverable, it's versatile. It's honestly like one of the most original monster designs you could think of, like at that time. It's
But
like
yeah.
I
Anyway,
don't
so
know,
but
like I didn't know what any other monster design that came close to looking like what it did. So, like,
and On a recent rewatch that we did for the 20th anniversary, we did admit some of the CGI on the mother creature holds up very well. The babies, on the other hand, ouch.
Like, especially when they're mostly running as CGI, but when they're hatching out and it's all the actual practical stuff, they look fine. They're okay. They're pretty good. But once they start moving in CGI, oh boy.
Yet the Godzilla himself looks phenomenal running in the rain and all that stuff. I mean, one of the most memorable scenes is that helicopter chase where they're practically doing the Death Star run in New York City trying to shoot Godzilla, but his body's so cold that the heat seekers can't even track him. Which I don't know how that works, but
A memorable moment for me was when he first makes shore on Manhattan.
oh
Especially,
yes.
all you see are his feet. His feet look so fucking good. It's like I'm pretty sure, like you would be hard pressed to convince me that those weren't practical. They shot right there because
And
they look
hell,
that convincing and look so real.
it also led to one of the most amusing moments. It's this gag where, there's a person screaming, you see the foot coming down, you think, oh, he's gone, but you realize he was just barely sandwiched between the toes and probably shot himself being that close to death.
But honestly, when you think about it, his uh, reaching the shore of Manhattan, that whole scene, it felt as close as Godzilla as you can possibly imagine. Because like wherever Godzilla makes his big entrance to any island or location, like it's unforgettable. You're not gonna forget ever seeing that thing coming storming through all your buildings and streets and all that. And so
Yep.
I think that was like a legit Godzilla moment that I could actually can say, yeah, that's definitely on par with the actual big guy.
Oh, I also really love the submarine chase. I remember when we were doing our rewatch, I couldn't stop gushing about the tension in that scene.
Yeah, but it's a weird love hate relationship. I think it mostly has to do with me actually watching the actual original Godzilla because I think for some reason I think you actually no actually Netflix had the Americanized dubbing and reshooting with Richard or not Raymond Burr, Godzilla King of the Monsters. That looked at it like, oh, okay, that's kind of hokey and all that. But when I actually watched Gojira, like start to finish, and or like the aftermath of his real big attack on Tokyo, like it really sunk to me as like, oh, this thing's this thing isn't funny. This is like an actual legit disaster movie that we're watching here.
And to be fair, the Raymond Burr version still tried to play it as straight as it can with him involved. He had a lot of great respect for the original. In fact, when they brought him back to do Godzilla 1985, they wanted to make it like a straight up spoof, like Airplane with Godzilla and all that stuff. And he was adamant that no, we have to do it serious. And there was this old script that they had to throw out because he hated it because it was just full of bad puns and jokes. And only one joke remains, and that's when one of the generals sees the destruction on screen and says, "That's quite some urban renewal program they got there." And you see Raymond Burr roll his eyes. I don't think that was the character. I think that was actually Raymond Burr, the actor, thinking, "God, they kept that crap in."
I'm surprised he didn't like just throw a fit whenever they tossed in all those fucking Dr. Pepper product placements in. It's like every other scene in America, it's like there's always like a can of Dr. Pepper in it. It's like, oh my god.
uh, would you really want to be mad about Dr. Pepper when there's IHOP, Sears, uh, oh crap, what else was there?
Yeah, but here's the thing: those things didn't like go out of their way to make a huge commercial to wrap around with it involving the actual like character. Like I don't remember IHOP's having a Superman commercial or having Sears being invaded by the Kryptonian like runaways. No,
They crashed right,
Dr. Pepper literally made a huge commercial where he's like sipping off a gigantic can of Dr. Pepper. It's like,
but that happened outside the movie. in the movie, you have one Dr. Pepper vending machine in the background as the generals walk down the hall, and during the scene when Godzilla is running away to escape,
Yeah, but
falling
every
to
time
birds,
I cut back to seeing the Americans watching all this, there's always a guy that's just taking that big sip of that Dr. Pepper.
as you could probably guess, fans, he's not a fan.
I'm not a fan of that drink. I tried it 3 times, like all the times, like garbage down the drain.
And he looks at me and asks me, "How do you drink that stuff?"
Honestly, I only it was only like recently, like last year, that I actually figured out what the problem is. Like they fit all flavors into one thing. Like it almost like 50 flavors in it.
And you
And it's
only have
like,
so much
well,
taste
okay,
buds.
that explains. I can only stomach like at least 25 of it.
Okay, but yeah. Anyway, uh, now obviously moments that always stick to me are the monster deaths. Like every time Godzilla goes, they make it quite a spectacle. Like when he dies in the first movie, even though he just destroyed and wiped out the city of Tokyo, you can't help but feel a little sad when Dr. Serizawa has to go down there and turn on his oxygen destroyer. And when he's almost serene when they attack him, like he's in his own element. He's in the sea, just walking, not provoked by the humans or nothing. He's just in his home, and they have to go and kill him.
Yeah, I feel more bad for Serizawa at that point, not Godzilla.
Well, maybe because I'm partial to Godzilla anyway. I was like, well, it was sad for everybody involved.
I felt more sad when Zilla went down on that bridge. It's like, well, yeah, it's like that's brother this right. He was just an animal. It makes sense why he got mad at the main characters. They blew up his own nest and children. Like, would you be happy if you came back from home work one day and found your entire house was blown up and your kids are all splayed on the front yard dead? No,
Yeah.
you'd be going like, "Where's the son of a bitch? And how many ways should I skewer their heads?"
In fact, they kind of revisited that in 2014 by having the female Muto swear revenge against Quicksilver for blowing up her nest.
Oh my god!
That's
Now
so
I can
funny.
see that.
It's so funny. 2014 has two MCU actors in it. Uh, Aaron Taylor Johnson and Elizabeth Olsen, who played Pietro and Wanda in the previous movie. So here they are playing a husband and wife, and I'm having ultimatum flashbacks.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Like any other monster deaths besides the first movie?
Oh, well, technically it's not a death, but the way he went out at the end of Godzilla 84.
Oh yeah, where he falls fall down a volcano.
Yeah, because they lure him there with bird chirps, and Professor leaves it to the original sailor, Ken Okamura, who survived Ryu, who survived the Godzilla attack from the way opening. So he got the chance to be the one to push the button that set off the charges and made the volcano erupt so you fall in it. And you have the Prime Minister, who's like the best character in that movie, watching Godzilla rise with all the lava and everything, and they start crying. The people watching the screen start crying watching this creature, and they're playing this lush, sad soundtrack as it's going on.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about Godzilla 85, but that thing like definitely has balls to actually be taking it seriously. It's like obviously it's like the movie literally after all the goofy like, yay, Godzilla's our hero, he saves the day, and like it's a huge tone whiplash to jump into that movie. I
Plus, you
mean,
also have to
that's
throw
because
in
it's a huge anniversary for the big guy, and they thought,
plus
oh, there's only one way to go. We got to go back to basics.
plus you also throw in world politics at the time. You have Russia and America arguing at Japan, saying you must let us nuke Godzilla.
But yeah, I don't know why I'm just so enamored with watching it whenever I do it. The way they actually built the city for Godzilla to go through is like he's not entirely huge. The buildings have like grown taller with like day and age have passed, so it's kind of like a stark difference to see uh, Godzilla not being the one thing that's towering. Of course, in a later movie, they would find an excuse to try to make him just as big as them. but like it just feels so real to see like that Godzilla. Especially, I think they went out of their way to make the suit look damn near good. So it's like,
Plus, it's one of the few times where you could say Godzilla is kind of scary.
oh yeah, especially the fact that the first giant monster attack is not Godzilla; it's the lice that falls off of him that are on the boat.
And it sucked the moisture out of those fishermen and made them look like desiccated, mummy corpses.
Yeah, that's it's like, and those are from Godzilla of all things.
The idea is they've been normal lice. They kind of latched onto him, and after years of feeding off his radiation and blood, they turned into that. Oh,
Yeah,
also, that roar, that's the one that included that very guttural, bassy version of his usual roar. Because every time people hear Godzilla roar, they usually hear that Showa roar. That's like a tire screech mixed with a wail. I have no proper way to describe the screonk, to be
I
honest.
just, I didn't, I do. It's exactly the method that they do to actually make the sound. It's literally a leather glove rubbing down against like string wires.
Yeah. Oh, you hear that? So now you have this more beefier, aggressive, growly version of that roar that plays in the 85.
Yeah,
And
I think
then,
they went out of the way to try to make add in like actual animal roars into it, so it's actually makes it more like organic.
hell, they even went to the trouble of making an animatronic Godzilla for close-ups that had like the lips curl, and they based it off like the way lions would stretch their lips behind their teeth when he roars and everything. So I think that one is like the most primal looking Godzilla, even though people like to make fun of it for having a sort of a lazy eye. Yeah, from the side he looks intimidating. From the front, he kind of looks like he's high or something.
Yeah, but you can you look at any normal person and say, okay, look straight ahead of you, and you'll see that their eye is kind of listing a little bit. Like even like the front of the Scream cover box, you'll see someone's having like a little bit of listing eye on there. But it's like, well, no, if you think about it, that's literally how they look. So
Yeah. So then, yeah, so there's that. Oh, of course, we can't go without mentioning the death at the end of Godzilla versus Destroyer.
right, he is burning Godzilla. He's literally like burning to a point where he can literally melt the entire world if he's
Yeah,
not treated.
yeah, he was gonna blow up like 10,000 Nagasaki's at once or whatever.
Yeah,
And
and
then with
even if it wasn't that, the intense heat would literally like melt down to Earth's core and cause like a little bit of a rupture. So either way, you're gonna die from a fast way or a slow way.
China syndrome is what they called it.
So, but they managed to find a way to cool him down, which I think is the method that they used to stop him in Shin Godzilla too.
Yes, they did.
And so, like, he goes down to a point that's way, way below freezing, and it's enough to stop him from melting, but he's just disintegrating from his own like intense heat that's been going on constantly.
And that roar, and plus, it doesn't help that Akira Ifubuke, who's been doing the score since '54, uh, pretty much said, "I wrote the first Godzilla movie. It's only proper that I write the last one." And he said that when he was writing the funeral march, it almost felt like he was writing a funeral dirge for himself. He said
Oh.
he
Uh,
passed away like way after, like after Final Wars had ended. So he died before the series ended. After the series had ended, well, so it's not like he died before it was happened, but it was like he felt such an intimate connection on that level, writing the last score for Godzilla, and Requiem is one of his best pieces.
yeah, but but it doesn't end with complete tragedy because his son Junior is absorbing his energy, so he becomes the next Godzilla, even though they go nowhere with it. So
Well, it was never meant to be. That was supposed to be like a thing at the very, very end after the credits, but they were afraid the audience would leave before then. So they'd be leaving with that downer note of Godzilla's just dead, and then there's a montage of all his best hits, and that'd make him feel depressive. Junior absorbing the radiation was there to be a note of hope, like Godzilla himself is saying goodbye to the audience. 'Cause
Yeah,
they were going to keep him on ice for a while because the plan was America will make their trilogy of films. Godzilla will be on ice in the meantime until his anniversary in 2004. And well, we dropped the ball so hard that Toho said, "Fine, then we'll do it ourselves."
yeah. Although it makes you, I know a lot of people that say, well, did they think the Type 14 Godzilla is bad because they made Shin Godzilla after that? Well, no, it was actually the opposite. They were so impressed with Type 14 that they thought, hey, we should actually do something like that too.
hmm And not only that, but I'm glad we're talking about Shin Godzilla now because also people who know me and watch my channel know I have a crap ton of Evangelion videos. In fact, I have an Evangelion trailer on the wings to upload a little after this. And I mentioned that because, well, it kind of goes hand in hand with my Godzilla fandom in that I used to own a Godzilla 1998 movie promo magazine, and one of the ads in it was a flyer for one of the DVD releases of Evangelion, and that stuck in my head for a while. So when I had a cable some years later and they had on demand, they had a small section devoted to Adult Swim that had Evangelion as part of it, and I saw
Hmm.
those and got hooked on it. So I mentioned that because the director and writer of that anime, Hideki Anno, ended up being the writer and co-director of Shin Godzilla, where they wanted to bring the most nightmarish Godzilla to life and make him relevant and scary again. Plus, Japan themselves had just gone through the ringer in real life tragedies, from the 311 earthquake causing a massive tsunami, which caused a lot of property damage and loss, to the Fukushima reactor, which we're still dealing with, I might add, having a bit of a mini meltdown and causing all kinds of problems. So, and the government's slow response to that was kind of the impetus for this movie where they're kind of satirizing the Japanese government's slow response time while also saying, like, what would happen if Godzilla were to show up today, like today in the modern day, what would it be like? So in a weird way, Shin Godzilla is sort of a modern retelling of 54.
Yeah, and obviously a lot of American audiences were kind of meh or like unimpressed by it, but it it wasn't supposed to be like this huge big blowout where he's fighting another monster. It's literally supposed to take us back to how, like, if you look back at the '54 Godzilla movie, you would see um, how the government had to respond to that, and like they had to make a lot of arguments to say, no, we should not bring this truth to the public because back then the only news they got from was the newspapers. So as opposed to 2016, where as soon as the monster appears, like it goes viral. Like there's no hiding it. That thing is there for the entire world to see. So
Mm-hmm.
the government had to say, well, no, if the world finds out about this, like our standing with the economical and international politics are really just going to go in upheaval. So we have to deal with this delicate and graced and deal with this as if it's our own problem.
Actually, real world events from recently really highlight that. Like, for example, I'm not going to name names, but I'm sure a lot of us have heard about how before this pandemic really took full swing, how certain people in power knew ahead of time how bad this would be, but we didn't want the people to panic, so they kind of kept it a little down low before it was too late. And similar things happen in Chin, where they say we don't know what this thing is, we don't even know if it can come on land, but stick to information that we know. Don't make any assumptions publicly, or it'll backfire. So there's a part where the prime minister is literally doing a conference saying how he's in his rescue uniform, saying how we rest assured this thing will not come on land. And an aide walks from the corner and whispers in the ear, and he goes, "What? It has?"
But yeah, Shin Godzilla is really like brilliant in that way. So it like it's taking the whole concept of there's a giant monster attack, but it's really trying to emphasize how the real world will react. It's not like, oh, we have a giant monster, we have to all band together to stop it and like build the huge technological advancements just for this one thing. It's like, no, we would. There was no way any of us would be able to pull that shit off, like at
it,
all.
it's more of a coalition effort that stops them because we have to get help from their allies in America who also have their own ulterior motives. They have to get help from like Germany and uh, other places. It's like in Sweden. It's like they had the outcasts and the outside the box thinkers come up with a way to stop Godzilla, whereas the traditional bureaucracy was always saying stuff like, "We need permission to launch this rocket. What do you say, sir? Is this your decision?" You see them calling on phones like sort of civilians in a way. Should we fire? And that goes to the next chain of command, next chain of command. And you see that way, while it worked, has always been a little broken. Whereas you have these young kids and these outcasts like saying, "What if we found a way to like cool the structure?" And it's like it shows you about the past of Japan versus the future of Japan and learning how to live with this seemingly unstoppable, godlike being.
Yeah, especially when the director decides, say, you know what, this Godzilla, he shouldn't just be able to expunge fire from his mouth. He should expunge fire from his entire pores.
Drive from the back of his scoots to even the back of his tail.
Which I will to this day say that tail was an entity of its own. Like there is no way that tail was all just done by him. It had a mind of its own.
Hell, the back of it. I'm sure all of you might have seen a famous Godzilla YouTuber named D-Man 1954 talk about why that is a face at the very end of the tail. Because Shin Godzilla is like looks like a very crispy hunk. He has shriveled arms, but like these nasty teeth and a long, long tail. And that tail ends in this big fleshy nub with bones poking. It looks very nasty, very Giger-esque actually. And from his angles, you can see that it actually has a face embedded in it.
But yeah, it's funny how the Japan managed to, when they got back into the whole Godzilla thing, they decided, okay, we need to make it a villain because Americans are already making him as a good guy like we did in the old days.
And yeah, they're trying to go for something nightmarish, and hell, they actually were going to use an animatronic. It didn't work out, so they went for full CG, but they did details to make it look more suit-like, like thick rubber. They actually had the motion capture actor wear these heavy weights to stimulate being in a rubber suit, so that looks more natural. In fact, a lot of like hardcore Godzilla fans were pretty fooled, thinking, "Oh, the Godzilla suit looks pretty good," and you tell them that's all CG. They're like, "No." Particularly, once again, we keep mentioning him, James Rolfe. He was blown away by the fact that that wasn't a suit, even though it looked. He even said, "That's a suit, right? That's a suit." And they're like, Mike's telling him, "No, but that's all CG." Now, a common complaint about Shin Godzilla is maybe it's a little too talky, maybe it's a little too focused on the collective rather than having a central character that's not just an extension of the metaphor for politics. And like there were some people that we hear that calling them. I'm not going to name names once again, but they call themselves renowned Godzilla fans, and they say Shin Godzilla was kind of, and then I would say, you kind of missed the point, but okay, that's your opinion. You're fine.
Are these the same people that were confused why they called King Ghidorah in King of the Monsters Monster Zero?
No, it's actually a fella who's known for laughing his ass off at stuff like evolution and the happening.
You're gonna have to be a little bit more specific.
Um, he grew up with a lot of stuff.
Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that was always a running meme. He grew up with KFC. He grew up with it. Yeah. And I'm sure now you guys will know exactly who I'm talking about, but don't. Anyway, but yeah, and I know some hardcore Godzilla fans in like the podcast circles who've had their ups and downs with Shin, but ultimately they thought this was a pretty good film. I mean, there's some people calling it like the second coming, and others are saying, this is Geno 2.0, and I'm like, I'm more in the middle of like I really liked it, but then again, that's some of my bias from Evangelion steering me that way because they straight up use the James Bond inspired decisive battle as a theme in this movie. In fact, to the point where you're going, okay, we get it. You composed Evangelion.
It's funny we bring that up because there's also this other project that the director was involved with that involved Godzilla, but also his Evangelion units. I think the Universal Japan exclusive ride.
Oh, Godzilla versus Ava.
It's you would think by the time it's like, well, Ava units are screwed. Yeah, King Ghidorah is in that. So
Shin King Ghidorah.
yeah,
But oh man, like
but you can already tell how that battle goes when I bring that little detail into the fold.
on top of that, you got friggin' they made a concert of Godzilla and Ava together. In fact, there's this very beautiful rendition of Thesis of a Cruel Angel sung by the actual original singer herself. And they actually intertwined it with Godzilla theme, so it was like beautiful. And Shin Godzilla was a huge hit in Japan. Like they ate that up. Even people who aren't normally Godzilla fans thought this was the most important film they saw that year in 2016. There was two movies that did well that year: Shin Godzilla and that anime film Your Name, the body swap film.
But yeah, I think he even won an award for it.
Oh,
So
oh yes, it did. And Um, Shin Godzilla is now the official public face for Godzilla over there in Japan. Like anytime you see modern advertising for him, he tends to kind of resemble his Shin form.
I mean, it makes sense. He kind of got the OG version, S version of it with 2014, and like Japan's kind of happy with how we're handling that now. So it's good that we're doing justice for the big man for everyone.
Yeah, after the incident that was '98, of course they had to. Hell, they even make fun of it in GMK when they mention how we stopped Godzilla over 50 years ago, but then another monster had appeared and had attacked the coast of New York, and someone says, "Was that Godzilla?" Well, the Americans say it was, but our guys don't think so.
It's just funny considering the fact that that movie spawned a really awesome animated series, which had its own lineup of original gigantic monsters. So, in a way, it was almost kind of like a spiritual successor to the Hanna Barbera cartoon that I described, and
Yep.
it's like really really good, especially since they balanced both the giant monster stuff and the human stuff, the main cast, which
By
are
the way,
uh,
the Nick, yeah, the Nick in the Godzilla series is no Matthew Broderick, and he's probably better for it because he's more like Val Kilmer, if I had to find an appropriate way to describe the Nick in the series.
yeah, but um, it it's really interesting to see how Godzilla is able to be portrayed in different mediums. Because there's also these comic books that are like, I think it's Godzilla King of All Monsters that
Oh yeah,
had pretty much almost all the monsters ever seen being a huge gigantic threat in the world. I think Mothra hasn't shown up yet, so like I'm gonna hold my reservations. But if they do her dirty in that comic, I swear to God, I'm gonna.
oh, you're talking about the one that seems to have a mean streak against kids and has a lot of fun making fun of Obama and Jersey Shore when there's freaking monsters in the background, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're gonna already have the answers to it, but like I'm still waiting
Moth,
for her to cover.
Mothra's still benevolent,
Oh, thank God.
and well, that series was kind of and the Godzilla ongoing was markedly improved. Godzilla Rulers of the Earth. That's the comic you got to read from IDW because that one includes a rematch between Godzilla and Zilla, which is actually a proper fight this time.
Oh, yeah, I think I saw image of that type of fight on the internet somewhere. But
Like there's a funny bit where Godzilla does tail whip Zilla into a building, and he blows his fire at it, and you think, oh, well, just like in Final Wars, and then Godzilla himself actually has a what the f face when he sees that there's a hole burrowed underneath the ground,
oh,
and then
he pulled the helicopter move on him.
all of a sudden Godzilla himself gets ambushed by Zilla.
Oh, that's awesome. Uh, Another good comic I think is
Yeah,
Godzilla.
that was great. One moment. I think I'm. You might have. Okay, I got your signal again.
Yeah, I was saying that the other good comic that I know is pretty good is Godzilla Goes to Hell.
Oh my God, that's
And,
that.
and spoiler warning, that shit delivers where Jason Goes to Hell doesn't.
In fact, I want that to be an animated Godzilla anthology. You know, like just take it, use the comics as storyboards, but just take those stories and put them in animated format.
It's like with that type of thing, you think, oh well, Godzilla goes and fights the devil and all that, and fights imps in this huge hellish landscape. But wow, you are not ready for what you're going to witness seeing that. Like, it's not only demons but also angels that get involved, and it's like Godzilla's literally still an unstoppable force even after his death.
Hell, there's a cool bit where these red skulls representing every victim of his crimes manifest into a bigger version of him, I think.
Yeah, and he still plows through that like it's no business.
Oh, also, comic fans, they know that Godzilla was one time a part of the Marvel Universe back in the day, right?
Oh yeah, I forget. Yeah, back in the day, Marvel had this weird thing where like it the properties it had licensed to were all canon. So like stuff like Rom Space Knight was canon to the Marvel universe, and even Godzilla at one point. Where
Godzilla
I
fought
think
the
I
Avengers.
think not the Avengers got involved to help a giant robot fight off against Godzilla to defend save the world.
A robot piloted by Dum Dum, I believe, from the Howling Commandos.
Yeah, it's it's really bizarre. But it's really awesome at the same time when you think about it.
I kind of want Marvel to have the current Godzilla license for fun, just to see if they actually make the modern Avengers fight Godzilla.
But
Oh,
yeah,
and then of course another famous Godzilla comic we all know about is, of course, the one that's based off that famous commercial.
oh yeah, Charles Barkley, the greatest warrior of our world.
Coins, robots, Amazons, and trucks. As you can guess, we're big atop the fourth wall fans here.
But yeah, it's funny that Toho actually managed to do a commercial for that. But then again, like very recently, they did do a commercial with Snickers, timed with I think was
20,
it for 2014 or was it for King of the Monsters that they did it?
2014.
Oh yeah,
2014.
yeah. But they Toho actually went out of the way to make all this huge model set where Charles Barkley comes in and challenges Godzilla to a one-on-one.
That's where that famous Godzilla gif comes from, where Godzilla is like grinning and he puts on giant shades. That comes
Yeah,
from that commercial. Oh, and then speaking of Godzilla, I want to mention this. Another place that Godzilla found home at was the cable network. So you'd always get your occasional Godzilla marathons. In fact, you still do to this day. Comet will still run Godzilla marathons on the older Godzilla films. In fact, when we were getting hyped for King of the Monsters and watching the Godzilla films, we would actually hype ourselves up by watching the TNT Monster Vision intro, which uses the Oyster Cult song "Go Godzilla" as part of it.
which I'm gonna tell you, the moment we found out that they were gonna put that song in an honest to God Godzilla movie, finally, my head might have exploded out from like, holy shit! It took you this long to finally do this.
Plus, sung
But
by
I think
the
considering that the song actually would have fit in '85, considering that Godzilla does exactly what he does, like stop around, help us people in trains.
yeah. And what's funny is that again, also sung by a System of a Down singer Serge Tankian, who was pretty big that year. He did that. He also did a rendition of Game of Thrones songs for season 8. So it was nice hearing his rendition of it. But plus Bear McCreary like orchestrates it, so he made it much more. oomph, much more like it's still a rock ballad, but it has like orchestra backing it up, almost like the Godzilla theme itself.
But
In fact, yeah, I'm sure some of you may have noticed we used that song in our opening for this one, this video.
but I don't know where else to go with this. It's like we're just kind of geeking out with about this thing.
Oh no, I could go on for Godzilla for days, and people know me know best. Supposed to do that. Uh, I did have the foolish idea a long time ago of having your original superhero character take a visit to Japan and having Godzilla himself be a
I,
problem over there.
I'm honestly still waiting for it, and honestly, you could still pull it off considering I'm doing the whole Redux thing.
On top of that, it could also work as a Terrorwing piece when you think about it, because Godzilla does kind of get lumped in a little bit with sci-fi adventure and a little bit of horror every now and then.
Yeah, I mean, I did at one point say, okay, dude, let's just step back a bit and actually just rework this as a Terrorwing thing because it'll work out. But I think I thought at some point I was like, that might be a little insulting. You actually wanted this to actually matter, and it's like, you know,
Now we'll see. We'll see.
you
We'll see
just
what happens.
you had your heart set in this. Like, I even went out of my way to make like different posters for it. Like the most recent one I ever did was homaging Attack on Titan.
I remember. Uh, but yeah, and I bet you're wondering, like, well, how's a teenage superhero going to take on a 20-foot story monster? Well, I'll tell you how.
Well,
Oh
are
yeah.
you? Because that would spoil a little bit.
Oh yeah. I think I gave you the details exactly how I was going to go about, but yeah. Yeah, never mind. But yeah. Oh, another thing about Godzilla is, well, right now, we've waited for him to show up in anime, and he did have an anime trilogy show up on Netflix, which, depending on who you ask, was hit or miss. Planet of the Monsters was solid, although it did make Derek laugh his ass off when the lead protagonist, who remembers Earth, has been away in space for 20 years, comes back and weeps at the sight of grass over buildings.
And
And
like, dude, really hard
people
to
will
stretch
say there's some
the.
human character problems, like you have them trusting these aliens wholeheartedly. You have the main character mostly being all about revenge on Godzilla, even when other things. It'd be like saying hey, hey, guess what? I got us into college. Godzilla must pay. Like, okay, I'll bring up something else. Godzilla has to die. Not like exactly like that, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, I did think the first one was actually kind of good to see how they would try to fight against this Godzilla, which is honestly is a beefier version.
But oh
Although
man,
I'm still kind of confused. Was that like a younger version that they just killed? Like it was Offspring or something? They revealed that there's like another one that's like twice as big as that one.
because the one that was twice as big was actually the original Godzilla from 20 years ago. But because of the time warp, they've been away for 1,000 years, so he's been allowed, or longer, so he's been allowed to grow since then.
So the one they blew up to pieces really was just an Offspring.
Yep. So technically, they blew up Minya. I don't know.
But still, that one, the first one was solid. The second one lost me completely. I just couldn't buy it for 1 second from beginning to end. Like it almost
uh,
with the whole like culture that worshipped Mastra, but like even they just kind of lost. They weren't even gonna bring her up at all. So,
oh come on, the Hotaru are adorable. I mean, the two lead twins.
but like the third one, especially in the climax, that one was like, okay, I can see where they're going with this. Like, you have this like unstoppable like guardian of the earth going against this like otherworldly version of Ghidorah.
God, Ghidorah is a demon in this one. He's like just terrifying, and
I,
I thought
I,
he.
the only way to actually compare him to is like think of what if King Ghidorah was Cthulhu? Like that's
Yep.
the only way I could actually ever describe it.
And the scene where he makes his first entrance, that's like to that ship. I'm like, I remember we were watching it live, and I went, "Oh shit!" And there, when what they were implying hit me, and then they confirm it a few seconds later.
Yeah, I think I was realizing what was going on, and I was like, oh, they're going this route. Okay, that's that's really intense.
And of course, they had to kind of. It would have ended up pretty nicely. Then they had to give me the most stupidest action the hero could do at the very, very end, and to the point where I think I was laughing hysterically after the movie ended. Derek was more like, "What the hell?" and I was just laughing.
No, I
Right?
think I'm laughing along with it too, because considering that it's literally the biggest waste of time for anyone to do.
Because they end on a way where you think, okay, so humanity is now back on Earth. They're going to live with the Hotaru. He's even got a baby on the way. You think, oh, this could work. Then one of them has to say, hey, we found a piece of old technology. We'll be able to like get us back to modern civilization soon in maybe a few years' time. And he's thinking,
Oh no, we're not going back to the song dance ever again. No way, nope, nope.
so he decides that as long as someone remembers the old ways of hatred against Godzilla, there'll never be peace. So he decides to do a suicide kamikaze at Godzilla, and Godzilla just looks at him and just boop blows him up, and then that's the unceremonious end of our protagonist from all three movies. That'd be like if Luke Skywalker decided the Jedi must end, and he just flies his X-wing into the hull of a Star Destroyer at the very end to no fanfare.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry to spoil that movie, but most people haven't even seen Planet Eater, and I'm going like, that's my favorite of the three. But I remember laughing at just like, dude, you could have ended it right there, but you had to make the
They have
cycle.
their stupid ass Captain Planet lesson.
Like as long as someone remembers the old ways, the Godzilla's mistakes will continue to, you know.
Which you that's even more backwards. Like if you forget your old ways, you're gonna run into the mistake of doing the old ways again.
I don't know, but it's like I got what they were going for, but I remember laughing hysterically at the end. Like that happened. Although the best character in all three movies was the alien, exilian, exif type Mephis, who I'm calling Kwaru like because he reminds me so much of Kwaru, the angel from Evangelion. And so,
It was a guy that's a little bit like touchy feely, wasn't he?
yeah, he was a little too like I find you most fascinating, Haru. You're the most interesting guy, and I'm thinking, okay, just kiss and confirm your love right now, okay?
But yeah, you can from hearing us describe all this, you can clearly see why I said, okay, we need to try to actually do an actual anime Godzilla and actually make it work for once.
Yeah. So at the time of this recording, we have an announcement that next year Netflix will license from Toho a new animation attempt at Godzilla called Godzilla Singular Point, which has so many big names working on it, including Studio Bones, famous for current anime like I think Kill la Kill and stuff like that. Oh no, My Hero Academia.
Yeah, My Hero Academia. It's I'd be hard pressed to see them like mess up a Godzilla thing because they're pulling off like the whole superhero genre well with My Hero. So like if they can't do a kaiju thing, it's like well, really no anime could actually pull it off except for ones that actually do giant robots. But even they like get a little bit freaky with their giant monsters.
Are you talking about 3.0?
Well, I'm just saying that there are plenty of other anime that try to do giant monsters, and they kind of want to be like, "Oh, look at me, I'm avant-garde about it."
Oh yeah, but yeah. So Singular Point looks fascinating. Plus, Glasses Girl May looks so adorable, even though someone pointed out the funny similarity to Moon Dancer from MLP. But plus, the great thing about this is that because it's anime, the monsters don't have to adhere to human bodily proportions, so they can make the monsters look as animalistic and crazy as they want.
Which you could argue, like, well, didn't they do that with the anime trilogy? It's like, yes, but at least you won't see Godzilla look like he's boarded up for gym. Look at this building, bro.
I lift things up and put them down. But Earth Godzilla was ridiculously overpowered. Like when he first showed up, he did like a tail whip and he sliced like three aircraft apart in like battle cruisers in like one hit.
I mean,
That
yeah,
was,
Godzilla's all about being the unstoppable destruction, but I think it's a little bit overkill.
well, it's not an anime unless it's overkill. I mean, this is a genre where
I
people
mean,
can
I
summon.
I'd be half convinced that they actually say, "Oh, hey, we have this idea of this oxygen destroyer we can do on it." I would say with this Godzilla, it wouldn't even like it would just mostly give him a rash. Is what I'm saying. Like he's that overpowered.
But yeah, that's why it's so funny that Ghidorah has to use spatial Cthulhu powers to even deal with Godzilla. Godzilla can't even hit him. But yeah, Planet Eater is definitely my favorite of the three. But if you had to pick only one anime movie, probably be Planet of the Monsters.
Yeah, just kind of stick with that one.
But yeah, but Singular
Like
Point, I am so
Planet
looking
Eater is
forward.
only after if you, the Planet Eater movie is literally the only if you say, you know what, I think I'm just gonna waste my time and just stomach through all of these back to back. Like at the
I think
very least,
the
that climax will be worth it for you.
uh the Ghidorah fight is great. Plus, I love the psychological conflict between Mephis and Haruo, especially when they actually are in the cockpit of the Enola Gay during Hiroshima. Remember that moment? And they're reflecting on the nature of mankind. And me and Ige are like, when did this turn into Ava?
Like,
But yeah,
we already got a movie that was done by that guy.
mm-hmm. Say that again.
I said we already got a Ava inspired Godzilla movie. We don't need another one.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Godzilla has a future. Toho said they announced the universe of Godzilla they want to do after Legendary's contract expires, and Legendary still has a few more in the tank, including the long-awaited Godzilla vs Kong. Due to world events, it's been pushed back.
So, like that's it. That's literally how the giant monster universe with Legendary is going to end with that. Like,
And on top of
wasn't there a point that there were going to be other monsters that they were going to focus on?
some point, hell, Michael Dougherty even talked about wanting to do a Godzilla BC movie where we see that ancient civilization in its heyday.
Oh man, I would actually want to watch that. That'd be entirely different than whatever Godzilla movies we've ever seen, like up to that point.
Because in Godzilla King of the Monsters, they established that humanity and Godzilla had this coexistence, a symbiosis. What happens to one affects the other. Hmm. uh, but yeah, and I don't know what the future holds for him, but Singular Point is a promising future. Godzilla vs Kong, when that finally comes out, is going to be amazing. Hopefully, I mean, and even if it's a big colossal disappointment, well, at least it's going to be entertaining. I mean, it's from the guy who made the Death Note movie, You're Next, and the Woods. Oh, I'm sorry, Blair Witch.
Yeah, at the very least, you're going to say, well, at least they finally remade King Kong versus Godzilla.
Yeah, because certain famous personalities kept saying, "Wouldn't it be cool if this movie got an update?" And they kept saying that'll never happen. So when Legendary officially announced, "Oh, we got King Kong," and not only that, we're officially doing King Kong versus Godzilla in the near future, we're like, "Oh shit!" That was 5 years ago, but still, that's that's still something that I'm looking forward to. They're already making toys of it, and some people say, they're not collector grade. Well, of course, they're for kids, but they're pretty solid. Like I have that Godzilla that shoots fire out of his mouth, and the Kong with the axe.
So,
So,
yeah, I
yeah,
think it's a pretty good closing point for talking about our big guy here.
yeah. So I know this has been rambling all over the place, but hey, that's the nature of rambling, bros. Baby, we're here to just talk off the cuff about what comes to mind, and hope I made it entertaining for you guys. Little factoids and little things about us. Any other thoughts you want to share, real quick?
No, I pretty much like got everything off that I can think of at the top of my head with Godzilla or any other monsters.
Mm-hmm. All right then. So, did you have a good time with this one?
Yeah, it was pretty all right. It was good.
Yeah. So, well, you all let us know what you think. If you have any memories of Godzilla or any insights you want to share, please do. Feedback's always appreciated, of course, but that's what everyone says. But I mean it. And happy
Sound out
birthday!
for a '98 film fan down in the comments. I'd like to know.
Oh, definitely, because I was a I'm one of the few guys who's like an adamant defender of '98, not to like fanatical point of views, but I'm still very. It wasn't that bad. Then again, I'm kind of the same guy who would say that about what kills the dinosaurs.
Yeah, it's so weird that that was actually the first Batman movie I ever watched. You know, like it didn't think it was anything off about it.
Yeah, '98 was a strange period for movies because that's when we had Inspector Gadget and uh, Batman and Robin come out and Godzilla and pretty much in the eyes of a lot of people, pretty much a lot of bastardizations. I think Lost in Space came out around that time too.
Oh my god,
I
that
love you,
weird.
wife.
So
Like you got freaking Joey from Friends, and you got Thunderbolt Ross saying "love you, wife" for that way. Hey, at least the robot looked cool.
I think they got the original voice for that too.
Oh yeah, that was the original. That's Danger, Will Robinson, Danger. Gary Oldman was a good Smith, but he didn't scream as often because that's one funny feature of the original Smith. He used to scream his head off at a lot of things. But yeah, so yeah, so that was yeah. If you have fans of anything you just want to talk down below, please do. And we'll be seeing you on the next one. I don't know what the next topic will be, but whenever we think of one, we'll do it. So hopefully, uh, don't forget, if the world spins to see another century, please remember what Mothra did for you and the planet you lived on.
Also, totally ship Mothra with Godzilla.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Uh, there's so many beautiful comics about that. Oh, and Muscle Mothra. Look it up. You'll probably have fun with it.
Oh god, I think I'd be scared to try.
I think I might have shown you a few comics of those actually.
All right,
But yeah. All right, so I guess that's about it for tonight. Thank you all for joining us. This is Jonesy Cat 79 signing off, and along with my buddy Dark Neon.
sayonara.
All right, so we'll catch you next time.